Today I want to talk about what it costs your managers when the people who are supposed to be following processes and the way of doing things underneath them, when they don't do that, when they go off on their own, or they get sloppy, or they make mistakes because they either haven't been trained properly, or more often because they have been trained but they're just not doing it the way that they're supposed to. That has a very, very real cost for your managers. It has a real cost for you if you're managing people who aren't doing things the way they're supposed to be done. So let's say to manage the people who are underneath you, this is the amount of time that you have available in a day. Let's just say that this represents, an 8 or a 9 hour day, right? And so the amount of time it takes you just to manage those people when they're following the processes and the procedures, that takes time. But that shouldn't take all of your time. There should be time left over. There should be margin. That's what this area is up here, for you to do things like strategy and mentoring and other higher level things. But when they don't do things the way they're supposed to, when they go outside the process, when they don't follow the process, it creates these spikes in the amount of time it takes you to handle their work. And when you've got one person who's causing regular spikes, you still have a pretty good amount of margin in some of these gaps, and you just kind of take it for granted that, well, I can fix those things faster than I can take it back to them, faster than I can retrain them. But what happens when you add a second person and they decide they're not going to follow the process either? They're going to do it their way, and they start to make mistakes that you have to go back and fix. Or because they're not following the process, your job of supervising them takes longer and longer. And then you add a third person. And this gets to the heart of what I want to talk about. If you don't call out these mistakes when they first start happening, if you don't call people out for not following the process early on, pretty soon you have zero margin left. This shows up a lot in businesses that aren't growing, and it's perfectly okay. That manager, the person who's taking all of their time to go back and redo things, fix mistakes, help people out, basically do the work for them that they should have been doing if they would have followed the process, they've got time to do that because the business isn't growing. But as soon as the business starts growing, there comes a time when they have zero margin left, and you're basically paying an extra person for all of that work that's not getting done. And the problem is made worse by your best managers, because they're the ones who want to help out the most. They're the ones who want to get the work done the fastest. They're the ones who don't mind going out of their way to help somebody out. And when you say, I need you to call these people out for not doing things according to the process, they feel like they're not being a team player. They feel like they're ratting people out. They feel like they're just nitpicking. In construction firms, a lot of times they have punch-out crews. I talked to a contractor who's in the industry, and he said, we don't have punch-out crews. The guys have to do it right the first time. And all of a sudden, he was able to wipe out an entire level of overhead that all of his competitors had to deal with. All of his competitors were paying guys on an hourly basis to go out and do punch-out work. And he just said, I'm not going to do that. The guys that I'm paying to do the work the first time, they need to do it right the first time, so I don't have to send somebody back. And if I do have to send them back because they didn't do it right, that's on them. I'm not paying for that. This goes to just the mentality of what you're willing to put up with as a manager. You really should be thinking about getting the people who have a process, the people who kind of have a set way of doing things, getting them all on the same page, calling them out when they're not doing it the way it's supposed to be done. Because when you don't, it just compounds the problem for your managers. And one day you look at your managers and you're like, I wish we were getting more for our money. Well, you could be if you give them back that margin by making sure the people underneath them follow the process. See you guys tomorrow. Today I want to talk about what